Welcome to the Explainer. Today we're going to talk about a word you hear all the time, average. Average salary, average temperature, average score. Seems pretty straightforward, right? But what if I told you there are actually 3 different ways to figure out an average, and picking the wrong one can completely twist the story your data's trying to tell?
Okay, let's start with a really basic problem. You've got a big pile of numbers. Could be anything. Test scores, prices of houses, whatever. How in the world do you find that single one number that actually represents the whole group? You know, the one that gives you a real sense of its center.
Well, to solve that puzzle, we've got 3 main contenders for the job. We're about to meet the mode, the median, and the one you probably already know, the mean. Each one has a totally different way of looking at the data, and each has its own strengths and weaknesses.
First up, we've got the mode. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's simply the most popular number in the group, the one that shows up more often than any other. A little fun fact, the word mode actually comes from the French for fashion, like à la mode. So you can just think of the mode as the most fashionable number in your dataset.
But here's the thing. The mode has some pretty big problems. I mean, think about the jersey numbers on a basketball team. It's totally possible that no numbers repeat, which means no mode. Or you could have 2 players with the same number, giving you 2 modes. It's just not stable. Changing just one number can make a mode appear or disappear. And that's exactly why in really critical fields like healthcare, you almost never see the mode being used.
So, because the mode is kind of shaky, we need something a little more reliable. And that brings us to our second candidate, the median. This one gives us a much more solid way to find the true middle of our data.
Finding the median is super easy. It's a 2-step process. First, you just have to line up all your numbers in order, from the smallest to the biggest. And if you have an odd number of data points, say 5 numbers or 21, the median is just the one sitting right smack in the middle of the line.
Okay, so what happens if you have an even number of data points? No problem. You still line them all up, but this time you're going to have 2 numbers in the middle. You just take those 2, find their average, and there you go, that's your median. And here's the really crucial part. The median is the 50th percentile. It's like the great divider. It slices your data perfectly in half. 50% of the values fall below it, and the other 50% are above it. And this is what makes it such an honest and reliable measure of the center. And that right there is the median superpower. It is incredibly resistant to extreme values, or what we call outliers. Imagine you're looking at the incomes in a neighborhood. If a billionaire suddenly moves in, the mean income might just skyrocket, right? But the median income, the person right in the middle, barely budges. The middle stays the middle, and that's why the median gives us such a truthful picture. And that brings us to the final and definitely the most famous of our measures. It's the one we all learned in grade school, and it's what we usually think of when someone says the word average. I'm talking about the mean. Now, before we get to the formula, let's meet a little symbol you're going to see a lot in statistics, the Greek letter sigma. I know it might look a little intimidating, but all it means is add everything up, or the sum of. So when you see sigma next to an x, it literally just means add up all the x's. Simple as that. And that leads us right to the formula for the mean, which I'm sure it looks pretty familiar. You just take the sum of all values, that's our sigma part, and then you divide by the number of values you have. That's it. So this is where we have the big showdown. On one side, you have the median, that stable middle value that is totally resistant to those crazy outliers. And on the other side, you have the mean. Think of it like a balance point, but it's really, really sensitive. Just one extreme value can pull the entire mean over in its direction, completely skewing the result. And this huge difference between the mean and the median becomes crystal clear when we stop just looking at numbers and we start looking at the actual shape of the data. This is where it gets really cool.
So, in a perfectly symmetrical world, what statisticians call a normal distribution, that classic bell curve, something amazing happens. The mode, the median, and the mean all line up perfectly. They stack right on top of each other at the exact same point in the center.
But watch what happens when you throw in a few really high values, like some giant salaries or super expensive home prices. You get what's called a right-skewed distribution. That long tail on the right acts like a gravitational pull, and it literally drags the sensitive mean along with it. But our stable hero, the median, it moves just a tiny bit, staying much closer to where most of the data actually is.
And yep, you guessed it, the exact opposite happens in a left-skewed distribution. You've got a few really low values, and that tail on the left just yanks the mean down with it. And once again, the median proves how tough it is by staying much, much closer to that true center, giving us a way more representative picture. So, after seeing all this, you're probably thinking, okay, so which one is the best one? And the truth is, it depends. It's not about which one is better, it's about which one is telling the right story for your data. Let's look at a real-world example where the mean is used on purpose.
This is called a weighted average. It's a special kind of mean where some values have more pull than others. Think about your grade in a class. The A you got in that 1-credit gym class doesn't have nearly the same impact as the B you got in your 5-credit calculus class. Here, the final exam is worth a whopping 70%. So even with a perfect homework score, that B on the final has a much bigger say in the outcome, pulling the overall grade down to a 3.2.
Okay, we have covered a ton of ground. So let's bring it all home. What is the one crucial point you need to remember from all this? It's this. The next time you hear someone use the word average, just pause for a second. Are they talking about the mode, the most popular choice, the median, the true middle number, or the mean, that balance point that can get yanked all over the place by outliers? See, understanding this difference makes you a much more critical thinker. The center of a story can totally shift depending on how you measure it. So the next time you hear a news report about an average salary or an average price, you'll know the most important question to ask is, which average are you using and why?